Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Ben, and this is the new 2024 Gibson Les Paul Modern Studio. Let's go. I've been searching for information on the Les Paul Modern Studio for weeks now, and nothing has come up. And then all of a sudden, this listing pops up on a popular retailer. And so of course I just snatch it up after doing a quick bit of checks to make sure it's not just a Alpine regular studio that's currently available or something weird like that. And sure enough, it shows up and I've played it, and I'm very excited to do this review because as far as I know, there's really not a lot of information out there on this other than what's available in the Gibson Gear Guide. And what I think is funny about the Gibson Gear Guide video is the host is playing the wine red satin version. There's also a smokehouse version. They show you a photo of that.
And they come in a couple of different colors right now. We got wine red satin, smokehouse, and soon for you to see a worn white finish.
And then they say there's also soon to be a worn white version, but there's no photos of that. So it's interesting that that's the one that pops up for sale. And here it is in my hands. I do think this will be the Les Paul Studio going forward, and there won't be two variants like the Les Paul Standard and Les Paul Modern. I don't think there's going to be the Les Paul Studio and Les Paul Modern Studio. And I think that because on the Gibson website, all the studios that are listed right now are discontinued with the exception of the wine red finish, which says hurry, only a few left. So if you want the old model, now might be a good time to get it. The Les Paul Studio, as of now, 2023, retails for about $1,700. I picked this thing up for $2,000, which does seem like a lot, but with the new Modern Lite coming in at about $1,500, I think there's probably enough special features on this comparatively to maybe justify that extra $500. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what you think, and we'll see if it's worth saving $800 off of the cheapest available Les Paul Standard model. So let's start with the case. So this guitar comes in the Gibson faux leather black case. And it's probably one of the best available for a guitar manufacturer, in my opinion. Inside this black case, we get a nice black padding and a Velcro strap to keep the axe secure while you're moving around. Open up the pocket on the front and we get the Gibson goodie bag. Inside the bag, we see the Gibson strap, an ad for the Gibson app, Gibson warranty and checklist, owner's manual, blank truss rod cover, truss rod tool, bridge adjustment tool, polishing cloth, and the what? There's no baby photo? Yes, that's right. Gibson has confirmed officially that they are getting rid of the baby photo. Sad face. I do think at first glance that this particular finish, the worn white finish, is a little bland looking. And I did mention earlier it does come in two other finishes. One will be the wine red satin and the other one would be the smokehouse finish. But this one in particular, I do think it's clean looking. It's very modern looking, but without the binding, it does look a little bit bland. I do think that the new black nickel hardware is pretty fetching though. That's something that I've really grown to like over the past couple days. And of course, I think what a lot of people are excited about is the modern heel cut here, which is really hard to tell. There you go. But sort of matching what the Les Paul Modern is doing, but just a tiny bit of a cut because the body is, you know, 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch thinner, whatever it is. But other than that, the body is basically the Les Paul aesthetic that we've all grown accustomed to. The Les Paul Modern Studio is a mahogany body with a maple cap. It's a little bit hard to tell with the worn white finish, but after arriving I could definitely see that there is, yes, a maple cap, because I had a fear that maybe they were going to do what they did with the Modern Lite, which is just one solid slab of mahogany. And while that does work for this guitar, I'm pleased that they kept the maple cap on here, even if it is very difficult to see. The top is a solid white finish, you can see that, and the back is more of like this brushed sort of finish, kind of like the TV yellows are a little translucent. And I do kind of like that, but that is definitely where the difference is. You can barely just make out where the maple cap is here. You can see that little thin white line, and then where the brushed body of the mahogany begins. Now this guitar does have what Gibson calls the ultra modern weight relief, and it still comes in at a pretty hefty 8.5 pounds. I thought it was going to be a little bit lighter, but that's not too bad. And I will admit that I'm used to this contour now after playing for a few days, and it does indeed make it easier to get up here to the higher registries of the fretboard. Also, what I think is good about this body is it is one solid piece of mahogany. There is no split in the middle, and I like that. Just like previous iterations of the Les Paul Studio, the Les Paul Modern Studio also has a slim taper mahogany neck. But where this one differs is that the fretboard is made out of ebony instead of rosewood or laurel or whatever other studios have been using over the years. So that is pretty cool. The first fret measures in at 0.78 inches, and down here at the 12th fret we're getting a 0.89 inches. So it is pretty thin all the way through and through. The nut is measuring at your standard 1.69 inches, just like most Gibsons. Now for the first time in a Les Paul Studio, we do have a compound radius fretboard. Up here at the first fret, we're measuring about a 12-inch radius, and down here towards the end of the fretboard, it gets a little bit closer to a 16-inch radius. It is subtle in my hands, but it is a measurable change for sure. Now, as mentioned earlier, this guitar does have all black nickel hardware, which I think is pretty fetching. You've got your stop bar, your bridge, your pickup covers, even the mounting hardware for the pick guard, the Grover tuners up top, nearly everything with the exception of the strap button is black and the jack is still the chrome. What I do think is kind of cool though is the pole pieces are also chrome. And while you can't tell when you just look at it, at a certain angle, they really pop out against the black nickel. And that's actually kind of neat looking, I think. Now we've got a tune-o-matic bridge here as well as a stop bar. Both of them are made by Advanced Plating. The tune-o-matic bridge weighs nearly nothing. It comes in at just under an ounce, which is pretty incredible. The stop bar though is a little bit heavier at around 3 ounces. So in total you get about 4 ounces of weight right here. Moving on up the guitar, we've got our medium jumbo frets. There's 22 of those. We get up here to the top and we've got our Grover Rotomatic tuners there. These are 14:1 ratio in case you're curious. Inside our truss rod cover, we've got our normal Gibson truss rod, of course. Moving back down the body, we've got our black mushroom style strap buttons. Not my favorite design from Gibson, but they do the trick. And lastly, as mentioned before, we've got our chrome jack there. Above all else for this guitar, including the contour cut, what I was most interested in for this guitar was the electronics. And I'd heard they'd done some interesting things, and indeed they have delivered on that. Now, while I hoped that they had introduced new pickups, as that is always exciting, these are the standard pickups you've seen on studios for years, which is the 498T and the 490R combination. Another thing that I think is very interesting is a set of Halloween pickups. But once we flip it around and open up this cavity here, that's where things get a little interesting. So you'll see a lot of circuit boards in here, which is going to make people, some people anyway, a little displeased. But unfortunately, that's what you get here. You buy this guitar and there's no way around that. So what you've got is 4 CTS 500K push-pull pots back there. And yes, of course, a lot of circuit board. We do have orange drop capacitors in there, which everybody likes. And so what are we dealing with here with these push-pull pots? Well, I'll tell you, right here, we get a Coil-Tap for the bridge, you get a Coil-Tap for the neck, you get a phase reversal, and lastly, you get the solo switch. Now, when we take readings of these pickups, you get a 13.61 for the bridge, the neck gets a 7.63, and in the middle, you get a 4.88. Oh, you wanted to know more about the solo switch? Well, let me tell you about that. It's a very interesting thing. It literally turns your guitar to 11. I know that sounds like a joke, but it is not. So for example, let's say I've got the guitar in the middle here and I turn the phase reversal on and I'm playing some rhythm, whatever, and then I go, oh, it's time for a solo. I pull the solo switch. It shuts everything off, redirects everything to the bridge pickup, and it gives it a tiny boost. It literally turns it to 11. If you're at 10 now, you're at 11 once you pull this. And it also disables nearly every control. It doesn't matter if I change this, doesn't matter if I mess with the phase reversal, doesn't matter if I change the tone or the volume. It's gonna be the bridge pickup at 11. The only thing that will change that I found is you'll still be able to do the Coil-Tap, but that's it. Coil-Tap, volume, doesn't matter. Coil-Tap, tone, doesn't matter. Pretty neat. I think it's a very cool feature. I'm curious to see its application in the real world and see how useful it actually is. And as you can see, you've got a lot of black plastics here. You've got the black pick guard, the black pickup rings, you've got the black speed knobs, you've got the black pickup selector switch, you've got all black plastic plates. When it comes to the inlays there, I don't know if they're pearloid or if they're mother of pearl. I'm inclined to say they're probably pearloid, but I know that a lot of guitars in the modern range actually do have mother of pearl, and that would be the Les Paul Supreme as well as the Les Paul Modern. So would I be surprised if they were mother of pearl? Yeah, I still would be surprised if they were. So I'm just going to say they're probably acrylic or pearloid or whatever. Moving on to that, we've got the truss rod cover there that says Studio, and as you guys probably saw, there was a blank truss rod cover in the bag as well if you want to switch that out. Interestingly enough though, there was no poker chip here if you ever wanted to add that, but I think it looks pretty good without it. Now, something that they said on the Gibson Gear Guide video, and I watched it over and over and I couldn't really tell, and even when I got the guitar a few days ago, I took it out of the bag real quick and I looked at it and didn't really get a chance to play it too much that first day, and I set it back in, and it wasn't until the next day when I was playing it and I was thinking about what he said, which was...
New to this model, we have a compound radius bound ebony fretboard. Really nice touch.
It had a bound ebony fretboard. And I looked at it and I was like, what is he talking about? But yes, it actually is a bound ebony fretboard, and it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. But you can just make it out that there is a black binding on the entirety of the fretboard there, and I think that is actually really cool. So yeah, actually the more I look at this guitar, it just reminds me of kind of like an Italian cake or something. It's all clean whites with just very sharp blacks. It's actually really grown on me quite a bit. I'll run through a bunch of different sounds for this thing, as well as I will show you the solo switch so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'll also do a neck dive test at the top of that segment just to answer that question if you have it. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for checking out my video. Let me know what you think in the comments about the new Les Paul Modern Studio. And if you liked this video and you like content like this, please like the video and subscribe as well. That really helps me create more content like this. All right, guys, have a good holiday. I'll see you in 2024 next time.